Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening.
So,
Can we?
Yeah.
Can we start?
Good evening. Good evening. Yeah.
yeah,
Good
good
evening,
evening, ma'am.
madam.
We can wait 5 minutes because participants are still joining.
Okay, no worries. Do let me know, is my video and audio clear?
Yes, ma'am. It's absolutely right. It's clear.
In the meantime, I can share my screen so that
Yeah, just a minute.
should not.
Yeah, you can share now.
Okay. Is it fine? Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. Please, yeah, it's fine. So, can you do it on the slide so if possible? I think.
Yes, I'll just check. Is it?
Yeah, it's
Is it
perfectly.
scrolling?
Yes. So a very good evening to all the participants, and welcome to this second day of 1 week online faculty development program on advanced research methodology. Myself, Dr. Dilshad, welcome to all of
Recording in progress.
you in this 1 week journey of learning. So it's really a great privilege for us that our today's resource person and Dr. Anamika ma'am has joined as a resource person for this development session on systematic literature review and meta-analysis. So thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us and for accepting our invitation and sharing your knowledge and experience among our participants. So Dr. Anamika is presently working as an assistant professor in the Center for the Studies in the Science Policy and School of Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. She is also concurrent faculty at a Special Center for the Systems Medicine. She is Associate Dean of Students at the university level. She has been the convener and innovation ambassador of Institute's Innovation Council and coordinator, National Innovation Startup Policy, Ministry of Education's Innovation Cell. As the convener of IIC 3.0 at JNU, she has organized 7 events since December 2020 to promote the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems within the campus. Ma'am has been the editorial board member of Precision Medicine Research Journal. She has a wide teaching and research experience in the field of social science as well as medicine also. So thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us and for giving your valuable time from your busy schedule among the participants. So thank you so much, and it's over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir, for the kind words and wide introduction. Thank you so much. And it is indeed a pleasure to share my knowledge on systematic review and meta-analysis with all the participants who have joined us. So before starting, I would just like to understand the background of the participants for today's session. I can see there are almost 90 participants. So can I know the background? They are from social sciences, they are from sciences, law.
Ma'am, we have a mixed kind of audience. Like we have some social scientists, some medical faculties, also some humanities, and as well as some science faculties are also.
Okay.
So we have a mixed kind of audience. Most of them are faculties in the university and colleges.
Okay, great. I would appreciate if we can have a dialogue type of interaction during this session rather than just a monologue system where just I am talking and you are listening. So I would appreciate if you have any queries or if you have any doubts during the session, we can clear them during the session itself. Otherwise, we can have a separate Q&A session at the end, but during the session is also appreciated. So now,
ma'am, whenever we allow to unmute the participants, there are some chances of disturbance.
Okay.
So I think they can ask their queries or they can make correspondence using the chat box. And in the last, when we will stop, there will be separate question answer session.
Sure. Then I think during the session, I won't be able to see the chat. Then someone,
yes.
Anybody of you can please tell me if there are any queries.
Yes.
Okay. So systematic literature reviews and meta-analysis is a very interesting topic, but it is on the other side, it is very technical to conduct a systematic review and meta-analysis, and it is there are a lot of differences what we will see today from the normal literature review that we do in our regular day-to-day activities. So there is a difference. There are some technicalities that we need to understand, that why systematic reviews are being conducted, how they are conducted, and also there are a few challenges to conduct a systematic literature review and meta-analysis, right? So in any research field, it is crucial, it is important, or rather it's crucial to embed a research topic into the broader framework. My slides are moving. So these are the learning objectives for today, that what are systematic literature reviews, what is the difference between literature reviews and systematic literature reviews, what is the relevance of systematic reviews in social sciences and health sciences. So being a health scientist from background, my more examples would be focusing on health aspects, and I'll try to make them easy understandable for everyone, even if it is a social scientist. Then also I'll try to modulate in such a way so that it is understandable to each and every part of the audience. And then steps that are required to conduct a systematic reviews, and what is meta-analysis and key takeaways. So as I discussed, that in any research field, it is crucial to embed a research topic into the broader framework of research areas into a scholarly discipline, and to build upon the body of knowledge in that area and to identify the gaps in the literature. It is actually required to provide a rationale for the research question, why you are creating a research question. You have to provide that background, and how you provide that background, you conduct a literature search, you do a gap analysis, you try to find out from the existing literature that what are the gaps in the research area that you are focusing. For example, if I am thinking to focus on what is the status of how the eyesight has deteriorated during COVID time among geriatric population. Geriatric population is the older population above 65 years. We know that the eyesight has deteriorated among the population, among kids, among the teachers, among doctors, because most of the things have been transformed from face-to-face to laptops or mobiles or internet or and all those gadgets. But I want to understand, I'm just giving an example, I want to understand that does COVID impacted the eyesight of geriatric population also? Was there any impact? I don't know if there is an impact or not. I'm just putting up a hypothesis that COVID has caused a deteriorating impact on geriatric population. So this is my research question. I make it hypothetically that this is my research question. But is there any study which has already been conducted in the similar area? Has the results already been out? So what is the status? Is there any clinical trial which has been done? Is there any assessment, any observational study which has already been done to assess this? So I need to get that. If not done, then I have to do it. Then this is the gap. How would I know that this is a gap in research? So I'll do a literature search. So this is the first step that we do. We all do, being a social scientist, being a health scientist, being a law faculty, whosoever I am. The first step is gap analysis that I do through a literature review. All the researchers have to familiarize themselves with the existing body of literature on a given topic, and considering a systematic review provides an excellent opportunity for this endeavor. What we generally do till date is we just Google it, that our research topic, we try to assess that eyesight impact on during COVID on geriatric population. We do this and we try to find out which are the studies being published. This is the general trend of literature review, what we do. So traditionally in education, reviewing the literature and doing the research have been a distinct activity. I don't know if you can see this. And reviews to find out what is already known from a pre-existing knowledge about a phenomena, a subject or a topic. New primary research to provide answers to question about which existing research does not provide clear or complete answers. So these two things are really related, but what we have seen till today is they are two different things, but actually they are two related topics where review finds what the pre-existing research about the topic is already done, and what new we can do is our research. So these two are related. You can't separate reviewing the literature and doing a research. Why we are reviewing a literature? We are doing to find a new topic for a research. And why we are doing a research? How we want to do a research or how we want to proceed through a research is by identifying the gap through a review. So these two are related. But there is a trick into that how we conduct a review of research is really important. What we do, I mean, simply typing in Google and saying that, okay, 3 studies have been found and they have already been conducted and the results are this. So this is a general review process. But we see that how systematic reviews have a role to play into it to get to better results, right? So a literature review is a scholarly paper which provides an overview of the current knowledge of the topic. It will typically include the substantive findings as well as theoretical and methodological contributions to a particular topic to some extent, not in a great extent, right? So reviewers to find what is already known from previous existing research is review, but to what extent he or she finds what has already been done is important, and how it has been done can lead to better results. So this is how we'll study how better results can be achieved while reviewing the literature, but in a different manner. So when we use the term research in a system, in an academic sense, it is widely accepted as a means of process of asking questions, generating knowledge, to answer these questions using rigorous, accountable methods. So I don't find a simple narrative literature review provides you a rigorous, accountable methodology. So what I am doing in my literature review using a topic XXX or YYY would not be same if another person is doing the same research on the same topic and doing the literature review for that topic. If it is a simple literature review, because there is no rigorous accountable methodology has been employed in simple narrative literature review. So literature reviews can be used for making claims about what we know and what we do not know about a phenomena and about what we know, what new research we need to undertake and address. It might provide you a basic idea that yes, there is a gap. So what systematic reviews is? Systematic literature review is a review which provides high level of analysis of primary research on a specific question. We have defined our question very specifically, in which original data is identified. Data is identified in systematic reviews, then selected with a particular criteria, then evaluated and synthesized to reach to a conclusion. So the primary purpose of the systematic SLR or systematic literature review is to provide a comprehensive summary of scholarly literature related to a particular topic or question. It is a comprehensive summary. So there is a difference in literature review. It might be or it might not be a very comprehensive document for you. So a systematic review is normally written by an expert panel. Everybody can't write a systematic review unless and until he or she has a very good background of working in systematic literature review and has a lot of training to understand what are literature SLRs. So can you please spare a second for me? I have an urgent call. Just wait for a second. Can you? Can you hear me now? Sorry for the interruption. It was an urgent call, so I have to take it. Okay. So we were discussing that systematic review is normally written by an expert panel after a thorough analysis of all the published and unpublished studies. We'll see what is the impact of including published and unpublished data into the systematic reviews. So what are actually systematic reviews? So systematic reviews can be defined as a review of existing research using explicit, accountable, rigorous research methods. So here is the difference, that it has an explicit and accountable methodology. If I want to do a systematic literature review on a topic and some other person wants to do a systematic literature review on the same topic, then the results would be same, because the methodology employed during the systematic literature review is a standard one and everybody has to go through that process, except for inclusion and exclusion criteria. We'll discuss in detail what is inclusion and exclusion criteria during the process of conduct of systematic literature reviews and meta-analysis. So what happens in contrast to traditional or narrative literature reviews, they are criticized as being biased and arbitrary. The aim of the systematic review is to carry out a review that is rigorous and transparent in each step of the review process to make it reproducible and uneditable. Nobody can challenge that you have not included, or according to your own wish, you have included this study. During a literature review, what we do, we scroll one page of Google and then 2 pages of Google, and that's probably the maximum 2, 3 pages, and what we find and we conclude according to that. Or what we do is we refer one research article, we refer 10 or probably maximum 15 research articles, and that's it. We shut it down and we find that yes, this is a gap analysis. We did our literature review, we did our bibliographic searching, and now that is it, and finish it. But in a systematic literature review, even if you find 100 of citations that are really important to your topic, you have to include that. You don't have any kind of shortcut to that. If your study process comes to an end where you have to analyze 100 studies, then you have to do it. So there is no kind of biasness. Or in normal literature reviews, generally what we do, we skip down the studies with negative results. But what we do in SLRs, because it's through a process and there is nothing which is no exclusion criteria which says that you have to exclude any kind of study which has a negative outcome. You have to include it, whether it is a positive study or whether it is a negative study, right? For example, I'll give you an example of a negative study. What I meant by saying that negative results or a negative study. A company, say Novartis, wants to explore that what is the effect of Nexium. Nexium was a drug which was used as a antacid. Long back it was used as an antacid. So what is the effect of that particular drug on liver? And it's Nexium, for example, Nexium is a product of Novartis. So it wants to study that what our company's drug is doing on liver, effect of particular drug on liver. And it found that Nexium is harming liver, or it is causing fatty liver among patients who are taking it as an antacid on a regular basis. So this is a negative study. The drug, the intervention is not good. The medicine is not good for the company's business as well. But as a protocol for a company, for any pharmaceutical company, it is a mandatory condition that whether your drug is doing good or bad, you have to publish it, and then the approving agencies will see if they want to retrieve back the drug from the market. So Nexium was an example of a drug which was retrieved back from the market, and it was said that it is not safe to be used. So it was called back from the market and it was never used again. It is a banned drug in most of the countries. So this is an example of a negative study which is published. In normal literature reviews, we generally ignore such type of studies which causes biasness in the study. Whereas in systematic literature review, you have to include any kind of study, whichever it is, whether it is a positive or a negative study. And in systematic literature review, rather than looking at any study in isolation, we need to look at the whole body of the evidence. Right? So in evidence pyramid is a pyramid which shows that how different studies are being treated in the level of their acceptance in the society, how their evidence is considered. They are strong, they are weak, they are providing very good evidence, or they are very weak in providing the evidence. मतलब वो बहुत अच्छे से करा हुआ है, मतलब उसका evidence trustable है. As we go from bottom to top, it shows the level of evidence is increasing because the content, the number of patients, not only patients, the number of participants overall studied among these studies keep on increasing as we go from bottom to top. In editorials and expert opinion, I am an expert. I am just writing my opinion that this is a good drug, or this is a good option, or this is a good type of study. So I am writing an editorial. I wrote an expert opinion, but this is my individual opinion. I have not supported it with any evidence. So this is at the lowest level of evidence, confidence level of evidence. Then comes upon case series and case reports. Case reports are generally on one patient. Case series are in couple of patients or couple of subjects. So this kind of study comes at the second level, which is again not very good. Then come case control studies where about 50 patients and 50 subjects in one group and 50 among the second one, and then they are compared for different parameters. So this is at the third level. Then fourth level, where we have a little larger population that we study, but there is no particular methodology to select these cohort studies. हम एक विलेज में गए, हमें लगा कि ठीक है ये विलेज हमारे लिए कन्वीनियंट है, हमारे घर के पास है, हमारे स्टडी लोकेशन के पास है, तो हम इसमें से 50 लोग 500 लोग उठाते हैं और इनको हम एनालाइज कर देते हैं. This is what cohort studies are. So again, there is no particular setup of selecting the samples. There is no protocol for that. So cohort studies are again at a not very good level of evidence. Then comes the randomized control trials, where there are a fixed set of guidelines, how we need to do it, how we want to randomize the patient, how we'll blind them patients, how we'll conceal their identity, how we'll randomly allocate them questionnaires or randomly allocate them some particular intervention or medication. So these are very good kind of studies, and they are normally conducted in large number of patients, large number of subjects. And then comes the SLRs and MAs, the meta-analysis, the systematic literature reviews and the meta-analysis. They come at the highest level of evidence. Why? Because they have included many studies, including RCTs, including cohort studies, including observational case control studies. And so because they have analyzed so many patients, one RCT is normally of 1,000 patients. So SLR has included almost, I mean, if they have included about 15 RCTs and one RCT has 1,000 patients, 1,000 subjects, so SLRs have collected the evidence of 50,000 subjects. So you can very well imagine that 15,000 subjects are a huge number. So SLRs have highest level of evidence. So So systematic literature reviews are a method of making sense of large body of information and a means of contributing to the answers to questions about what works and what doesn't work, and many other types of questions too. For example, I gave you about the Nexium. So Nexium works against liver or Nexium doesn't work against liver. So this is kind of hypothesis that I created to study my SLR. So they are a method of mapping out the areas of uncertainty and identifying where little or no relevant research has been done, but where new studies are needed. So now we are trying to identify the gap through SLR. And systematic reviews also flag up areas where superior certainty abounds. अभी नेक्सियम की जब ये स्टडी नहीं हुई थी कि वो लिवर पे इम्पैक्ट कर रहा है कि नहीं कर रहा, उससे पहले सबको लगता था नेक्सियम इज अ वेरी सेफ एंड वेरी गुड ड्रग फॉर एसिडिटी. उससे पहले सब कुछ ठीक था क्योंकि जो एविडेंस था वो बहुत स्पार्स था और पॉजिटिव रिजल्ट्स की जो मार्केटिंग थी वो ज्यादा थी. तो उसके बाद जब ये स्टडी, ये एसएलआर कंडक्ट हुआ, जब ये स्टडी कंडक्ट हुई, then actually it was found that the false information was circulating among the market. Even the regulatory agencies were not aware before the systematic reviews that such kind of thing is happening. अब उसमें क्या होता था, I'll again explain in more detail. एक RCT हुई, उसमें 1000 पेशेंट्स असेस हुए, उसमें 3 पेशेंट्स या 10 पेशेंट्स को लिवर डिसऑर्डर हुआ. ठीक है, फिर कोई एक और आरसीटी किसी और जगह पे हुई, किसी और स्टडी में हुई, किसी और पेशेंट्स पॉपुलेशन में हुई, उसमें क्या हुआ, 1000 पेशेंट्स में से 20 पेशेंट्स को हुआ. किसी एक दूर दराज की एक स्टडी में हुआ, एक इंडिपेंडेंट रिव्यूअर ने एक स्टडी करी, एक इन्वेस्टिगेशन करी कि कितने पेशेंट में, उसने क्या फाइंड किया, उसने आरसीटी करी, उसने देखा कि 2000 पेशेंट में से 100 पेशेंट्स को हो रहा है. तो अभी तक ये नंबर यहाँ 10-20 के हिसाब से चल रहा था, तो वो ठीक लग रहा था एक इंडिविजुअल में. जब स्टडी हुआ, जब एक एसएलआर कंडक्ट हुआ, उसमें क्या हुआ, जब 15 आरसीटीज इकट्ठी हुई तो उसमें से ये निकला कि 15,000 में से 2000 पेशेंट्स को फैटी लिवर हो रहा है. So that's a big number. Then came to analysis कि नहीं, ये ड्रग सेफ नहीं है, क्योंकि बहुत सारा एविडेंस इकट्ठा हुआ, जितना भी पब्लिश था वो सब इकट्ठा हुआ. उससे पता लगा कि नहीं, इसमें तो बहुत कुछ ऐसा है जो छोटे छोटे ट्रायल से नहीं हमें समझ में आ रहा था. बट जब ये ट्रायल्स को इकट्ठा किया गया, ये एविडेंस को इकट्ठा किया गया, then we got to know कि अरे यार ये तो काम गड़बड़ है ना. Then the drug was banned. So this is an example. So these are the areas where we think we know more than we do, but where in reality there is little convincing evidence to support our beliefs. ठीक है, तो हम अब so systematic reviews apply explicit methods to this task, such as comprehensive searching, quality assessment of studies. So there are therefore good reasons for applying systematic review methods to view studies. आपका पूरा नजरिया चेंज हो जाएगा when we'll see कि अच्छा ऐसे भी हो सकता है. So we'll see that. So systematic review methodology is well developed for trials, but the debate about systematic approaches to reviewing non-experimental research is in its early stages. We are still discussing कि इसको कैसे best possible way से किया जा सकता. So the contribution that non-experimental and qualitative research can make to evidence to inform policy and practice has been limited in the past because of uncertainty about how to include in the systematic review. Systematic reviews are the best source of providing the evidence to policy makers or the politicians or the bureaucracy who sits in, for example, Niti Aayog. वहाँ जो लोग बैठे हैं, they can't read each and every trial which is being conducted. What they do, they hire an agency to conduct a systematic literature review on a particular topic. तो उस टॉपिक में उस सिस्टमैटिक लिटरेचर रिव्यू से जितना भी एविडेंस होगा वो एजेंसी उन्हें कलेक्ट करके देगी। तो एक समरी कंक्लूजन उनके पास निकल के आएगा कि हाँ इस रिसर्च टॉपिक पे इतनी स्टडीज हुई हैं और उसमें से ये रिजल्ट निकल के आ रहा है कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल जो हम पिछला हम एग्जाम्पल डिस्कस कर रहे थे कि आईसाइट इम्पैक्ट ऑफ कोविड फॉर जीरियाट्रिक पॉपुलेशन, इसी की मान लो पॉलिसी निकालनी है नीति आयोग को कि हम जीरियाट्रिक पॉपुलेशन जो बिलो उसमें है, बिलो पॉवर्टी लाइन में है, हम उन सबको फ्री ग्लासेस प्रोवाइड कराएंगे। For example, this is just hypothetical example so that you can easily understand how the process happens. ठीक है, उनको ये पॉलिसी बनानी है कि हम जीरियाट्रिक पॉपुलेशन बिलो पॉवर्टी बीपीएल पेशेंट्स को हम फ्री ग्लासेस प्रोवाइड करेंगे जिनकी आईसाइट पे इम्पैक्ट हुआ है ड्यूरिंग कोविड। ठीक है, तो अब वो एक एक स्टडी जो स्टडी ऑलरेडी हुई है वो तो नहीं वो करेंगे, ठीक है, या वो खुद स्टडी करने नहीं जाएंगे। तो व्हाट दे डू इज दे हायर एन एजेंसी कि ठीक है चलो आप आओ, आप हमें इसके बारे में जितना भी डेटा आप कलेक्ट कर सकते हो वो कलेक्ट करके दो, उसके बेसिस पे हम पॉलिसी बनाएंगे। वी आर द पॉलिसी मेकर्स, बेस्ड ऑन योर रिजल्ट्स वी विल डिसाइड आवर पॉलिसी। सो दिस इज हाउ पॉलिसी हैपेंस। पॉलिसी मेकर्स यूज सिस्टमैटिक लिटरेचर रिव्यूज। बहुत सारी पॉलिसीज के टाइम पे ये कहा जाता है कि नहीं एविडेंस इकट्ठा नहीं किया गया। हाँ, कई बार फिर वही बात आ जाती है कि एविडेंस एक्सपर्ट ओपिनियंस पे पॉलिसी बन जाती है जो कि इफेक्टिव नहीं हो पाती, और पॉलिसी को इफेक्टिव बनाने के लिए सिस्टमैटिक लिटरेचर रिव्यू करके, लोगों से बातचीत करके, उनका डेटा कलेक्ट करके, एंड देन पॉलिसी मेकर्स यूज दिस डेटा, राइट। सो सिस्टमैटिक लिटरेचर रिव्यूज और मेटा एनालिसिस जो है वो कुछ प्रिंसिपल्स के थ्रू गाइड होते हैं। दे आर गाइडेड बाय प्रिज्मा गाइडलाइंस। These guidelines help authors to improve the reporting of systematic literature reviews and meta-analysis. ये आपको मुझको हेल्प करते हैं कि हम जो सिस्टमैटिक लिटरेचर रिव्यू हमने जो प्लान किया है वो सही से हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा। ठीक है, I'll show you this. See, I hope everybody. Parminder sir, please can you confirm that it is visible and readable? Okay, hopefully it would be. So Prisma checklist. This checklist help you identify that your SLR is according to the guidelines or not, you are going on a right way or not. So it tells you about each and every section. It tells you that the title of the systematic review is fine, the abstract is there, the introduction is there, why you are conducting it, why, what is the objective, what are methods, have you explicitly informed your audience that what is the inclusion and exclusion criteria, what are the sources of information, what is the search strategy. We'll discuss all these steps one by one in the next slide. So I just wanted to give you an overview that what are the guidelines which are there which help you in conducting the systematic review, and then the discussion of systematic review, other and any other information which is required. So we'll try to come back to this Prisma guidelines once again once we finish the overview. So this we discussed that comprehensive nature of a systematic review distinguishes it from traditional literature reviews, which are typically examine a much smaller set of research evidence and present it from a single author's perspective. So systematic reviews are important because they help to minimize the bias that would result from cherry picking of studies in a non-systematic review. अभी लिटरेचर रिव्यू हम करने गए, हमें लगा कि ठीक है यार ये 10 स्टडीज अच्छी लग रही हैं, हम इसमें ये पेपर बहुत अच्छे से लिखा हुआ है, हम इसी में से अपना लिटरेचर रिव्यू खत्म कर देते हैं। ये चेरी पिकिंग हो गई, ठीक है ये छोटी सी स्टडी है, इसमें सिर्फ 10 पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं, ये मुझे ठीक नहीं लग रहा, तो वी लीव इट, नहीं. So that cherry picking is not possible in systematic reviews, right? Unlike systematic reviews, literature reviews don't aim to produce an answer to an actual question. Systematic literature reviews कोई particular clinical question की तरफ नहीं पहुंचते, उस general background के लिए हमें information दे देते हैं. So literature reviews can provide context or background information for a new piece of research. That's what I said. And they can also stand alone as a general guide to what is already known about the particular topic. So sort of synthesis in literature review does not attempt to control for author's own bias. Literature review में मैं bias होगा या होंगी वो होगा ही होगा, उसमें हम कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव नहीं हो सकते, और कोई ऐसा प्रोसेस नहीं है लिटरेचर रिव्यू में कि हम अपनी बायस को कंट्रोल कर सकें, ऐसा नहीं होता. So systematic reviews originated in the biomedical field. Actually, it was from in this field. It was started through this field, and currently form the basis of decision making in evidence-based treatment and evidence-based behavioral practice. So medicine में, health sciences में systematic literature reviews का बहुत ज़्यादा use है. उसके basis पे drug approvals, intervention approvals मिलते हैं या कैंसिल हो जाते हैं, और इन्हीं के बेसिस पे जो एक्चुअल हमारे क्लिनिशियंस हैं वो प्रैक्टिस करते हैं, जो सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यू से एविडेंस उन्हें मिला है. अगर सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यू का एविडेंस कहता है कि ये ड्रग हाँ अच्छी है और बहुत माइनर साइड इफेक्ट्स हैं, तो क्लिनिशियन क्या होगा, आपको वो ड्रग रिकमेंड करेगा, प्रिस्क्राइब करेगा, और साथ में आपको कौन कौन से साइड इफेक्ट्स हो सकते हैं, क्योंकि उसके पास बहुत सारा एविडेंस है, कितने एडवर्स इवेंट्स उससे रिपोर्टेड थे, वो सब आपको गाइड कर सकता है. एक आरसीटी में या एक स्टडी में मान लो 100 पेशेंट असेस हुए, उसमें किसी को थोड़ा सा सिर दर्द आया, किसी को गैस्ट्राइटिस हुआ, बस ठीक है. बट जब सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यू से एविडेंस आया तो हमें पता लगा कि नहीं, एक दो पेशेंट्स में किसी को हेयर लॉस हुआ, किसी को स्लीप एपनिया मतलब नींद नहीं आई, इंसोम्निया हुआ, किसी को गैस्ट्राइटिस हुआ, किसी को हेडेक हुआ, किसी की नेल पेलिंग हुई, मतलब नेल्स का कलर चेंज हुआ, मतलब ऐसे बहुत सारे एडवर्स इवेंट्स थे उस ड्रग के साथ, जो वो पेशेंट को ऑलरेडी बता सकता है कि ये ड्रग खाओगे तो शायद ऐसा कुछ हो. तो उससे क्या होगा, पेशेंट जो होगा वो पैनिक अटैक में नहीं जाएगा. मान लो आपको डॉक्टर ने कहा कि आप ये दवाई खाओगे तो आपको हल्की सी खांसी होगी, बीपी, ब्लड प्रेशर, हाइपरटेंशन आप सबने सुना होगा. बीपी की कुछ मेडिसिन ऐसी होती हैं जिनसे कफिंग होती है, काफी पेशेंट्स में होती है. तो डॉक्टर ने आपको सिर्फ इतना बताया कि ये दवाई खाओगे तो आपको माइल्ड कफिंग हो सकती है, बट आपको कफिंग नहीं हुई, आप बहुत खुश, बट दूसरी तरफ क्या हुआ, आपको नींद ज्यादा आने लगी, या फिर आपको माइल्ड हेयर लॉस होना शुरू हुआ. तो आप तो घबरा जाओगे कि अरे डॉक्टर ने तो मुझे कफ कहा था और मुझे तो हेयर लॉस हो रहा है. डॉक्टर भी कंफ्यूज हो जाएगा, अरे मेरे पास जो स्टडी थी उसके अकॉर्डिंग तो सिर्फ इनको वो होना चाहिए था, कफिंग होनी चाहिए थी, वो तो इनको हुई नहीं, पर इनको तो हेयर लॉस हो गया, ये तो कहीं रिपोर्टेड ही नहीं है ना. तो सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यूज जब बहुत सारी स्टडीज का एविडेंस इकट्ठा करके आया, उसमें लिखा हुआ है कि हाँ किसी किसी पेशेंट को हेयर लॉस हो सकता है, किसी किसी पेशेंट को नींद आ सकती है. So this is the best way of collecting the evidence. बहुत सारी स्टडीज का इकट्ठा एविडेंस आ गया, तो जो क्लिनिशियन है वो वेल इन्फॉर्म्ड है और साइमल्टेनियसली वो अपने पेशेंट्स को ये इंफॉर्मेशन पेनिट्रेट करवा रहा है, किसी ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है, यू हैव टू बी कॉशियस. ठीक, अब हम चलते हैं सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यू प्रोसेस में. हम अभी तक तो हमने समझा कि हम क्यों कर रहे हैं, हम यहाँ तक क्यों पहुंच रहे हैं, हमारा रीजन क्या है, उसके फायदे क्या हैं, और किसी किसी चीज में हमें लगा कि ये बहुत चैलेंजिंग है क्योंकि एविडेंस बहुत लार्ज होता है, उसको इकट्ठा करना, उसको एक जगह कंपाइल करना, वो सब मुश्किल है, ये चैलेंजेस भी हैं. ठीक है, तो अब हम समझते हैं कि हम how do we conduct the systematic review process. Till date we understood that it has some systematic process to reach to the final stage. But what are the steps? What are the processes that we do during the conduct of a systematic literature review and meta-analysis? So first thing is we develop a research question. हमारे mind में एक research question सबसे पहले आएगा. हम क्यों कुछ करना चाहते हैं, है ना? उसके पीछे we have some mindset, we have some questions into our mind कि हम ऐसा क्यों कर रहे हैं. So सबसे पहले हम अपना question जो है वो frame करते हैं. We develop our research question. Then design a conceptual framework कि हाँ हम ऐसे ऐसे कर सकते हैं. Then construct a selection criteria. अब ये तो हमने सोच लिया, रिसर्च क्वेश्चन हमने बना लिया कि हमें सर्च करना है कि ड्रग ए इज बेटर देन ड्रग बी इन पेशेंट्स विद हाइपरटेंशन और डायबिटीज. ये हमारा रिसर्च क्वेश्चन हो गया दैट ड्रग ए इज बेटर देन ड्रग बी इन पेशेंट्स विद डायबिटीज, मोस्ट कॉमन. ठीक. देन हमने कंसेप्चुअल फ्रेमवर्क बनाया क्योंकि डायबिटीज बहुत कॉमन डिजीज है और ड्रग ए ड्रग बी मार्केट में बहुत पुरानी ड्रग्स हैं. अगर हम इन दोनों का कंपैरिजन करेंगे, अगर हम हर तरह की स्टडी इंक्लूड करेंगे तो बहुत वास्ट हो जाएगा. तो हम एक कंसेप्चुअल फ्रेमवर्क बना रहे हैं कि हम सिर्फ इसी तरह की स्टडीज को इंक्लूड करेंगे, इस तरह का एविडेंस जो है हम इकट्ठा करेंगे. Based on that conceptual framework and our research question, we develop a selection criteria. We selected few criteria on which we'll design our systematic literature review. This selection criteria would be the inclusion and exclusion criteria, right? Inclusion criteria, for example, in this case, हमारे patient population studies कौन सी होंगी जिसमें डायबिटीज के पेशेंट्स असेस होंगे. अब हम स्टडी डायबिटीज की कर रहे हैं तो हम कैंसर के पेशेंट्स को तो नहीं इंक्लूड करेंगे ना. तो ये हमारा इंक्लूजन क्राइटेरिया हो गया कि हम डायबिटीज के पेशेंट को इंक्लूड करेंगे. इसी के साथ इसका एक्सक्लूजन क्राइटेरिया हो गया कि डायबिटीज के अलावा जितने पेशेंट्स होंगे या जितनी स्टडीज दूसरे पेशेंट्स में हुई होंगी, कैंसर में, हाइपरटेंशन में, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा, हम वो सब एक्सक्लूड कर देंगे. तो इसी के साथ हमारा एक एक्सक्लूजन क्राइटेरिया बन गया. ठीक. देन कम्स टू इंटरवेंशन. अब हमारा टारगेट है, our target is just to study about drug A versus drug B. So why we will include any study that is assessing drug C or D? So the second inclusion criteria for us is studies conducted using drug A or drug B. इसी के साथ we constructed a second exclusion criteria. Studies assessing any other drug should be excluded. We don't want to assess that, so we'll exclude that. Simple. Then outcomes. We want to study that in diabetes the glucose level was maintained. This is our outcome, by which drug the glucose level is maintained. So this is our outcome. This is our inclusion outcome. Exclusion outcome क्या होगा? जो studies glucose level के अलावा diabetic patients में कुछ और देख रही हैं. If for example they are studying increase in blood pressure among diabetic patients through these studies, no, we don't want. We only want to study the glucose levels, so we'll exclude the studies which are assessing the hypertension from drug A or drug B in diabetic patients. We'll exclude that, right? In the initial stage, we decided that we want to include only the randomized control trials. So this is again an inclusion criteria, and the exclusion would be any other study design. Any study which is just observing the patients, we'll exclude that. Any case control study, we'll exclude that. Any case series, we'll exclude that. So this is how we construct our selection criteria. So what we are including and what we want to exclude, right? On the other side, if the evidence which is available is very less, then what we do, we broaden our inclusion criteria and shorten our exclusion criteria. हम ज्यादा चीजें इंक्लूड करेंगे. if I say an example, when COVID started, very few studies were being conducted. So during that initial phase, like in um, April 2020, if I want to do a systematic literature review of COVID, very less evidence was available. So during that process, I would try to include most of the evidence which is available and try not try not to exclude anything, so that I can have as much as available. So that all depends on your research question. The selection criteria is directly related to your research question, what you want to study. If you want to study a broader topic, then your inclusion criteria would be very strict, very stringent. If you want to study a very short, very current and very rigid topic, then your selection criteria would be very broad, so that no evidence is missed during the conduct of a systematic review. Now, what you have already done, you have already developed a research question, you have already constructed a framework. Based on that framework, you have designed a selection criteria. Now the third step comes that you develop a search strategy. अभी हमने ये सोच लिया कि हमको ये इंक्लूड करना है, ये एक्सक्लूड करना है, ये हमारा रिसर्च क्वेश्चन है, बट कहाँ से कैसे सर्च करेंगे? Now we have different kind of databases which are available for different topics. For sciences, for medical sciences, we have databases like PubMed, we have Embase, we have Abesco, we have multiple of them. For educational purposes, for educational studies, we have different databases. I'll show you some of the examples of the databases which are available. So we have different types of tools and databases which are available to search your literature. But then again, searching literature among these databases is not just typing a research question. It is a very rigorous effort in developing a search strategy for a systematic review, which is the most toughest thing. In that case, for different databases, you have to develop different search strings. What do you mean by search strings? Search strings are the combination of the terms or the keywords which might have been used to index that particular paper which is relevant to your systematic literature review. I'll tell you through this example only what we are discussing, that we want to assess drug A versus drug B in diabetes. So the publications which are published related to this area would include the keywords. Diabetes would include the keywords like drug A, drug B, glucose, because one of our outcome was glucose level, so we need glucose, and then we want to include the RCTs, so the randomized word should be there. So a combination of these words and also the synonyms of these words, right? So for example, for synonyms, I'll tell you an example that diabetes. So there are two types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. So type 1 diabetes is written as T1DM. So this is a synonym. Type 2 is T2DM. This is a synonym. Sometimes authors use such kind of things. So you have to include that term into your search strategy. Similar is the example for drug A versus drug B. So drug A, you all might be aware that there are two names for particular drug. One is brand name, and another is the generic name. So some of the studies might have used the branded name and some of the studies might have used the generic name. There is another term, another name of the drug, that is the chemical name, which is of the salt of that particular medicine, the chemical name. So some of the studies might have used that chemical name. So you have to include that chemical name into your search strategy so that you don't miss any study because of this reason that you have not included the right term for that drug. So this is another example. So search strategy is a very rigorous process and very important process, and time consuming also, because for different databases, if you are during your SLR, you have decided that you want to include 10 databases. So imagine the amount of effort you have to employ to create the search strategy, to develop the search strategy for 10 different databases. And then I told you about only the search terms. How to combine that search terms? See, we have discussed that for diabetes, we have terms like T1DM, T2DM. We want to include these terms. We want to include drug A, we want to include drug B, and we want to have a publication in which all these terms are there, right? So you have to combine these. You have to combine the patient population, you have to combine the drug, you have to combine the study design, and you have to combine, even for some studies, you have to combine the period also. What I mean by period, that diabetes, for example, is a disease which is there into Indian society for so long, and a lot of studies have already been conducted in diabetes. So what you want to do is you want to collect only the recent data. So what you will do is, while combining your search strategy, while developing your search strategy, you will add another term which would specify the date also, which will say that the data should be published only from 2010 to present or 2015 to present. You don't want that data to be into your systematic review from 1960, 1980. You don't want that. That's because the evidence is too old to study again. जो ड्रग उस टाइम पे एडवर्स इवेंट दिखा रही थी वो अभी नहीं हो सकता दिखा रही, बॉडी चेंज हो गई. जो ड्रग का एडवर्स इवेंट उस टाइम नहीं आ रहा था वो अब आ रहा है बिकॉज ऑफ लॉन्ग टर्म इफेक्ट. तो उस पुराने एविडेंस को इकट्ठा करके हम क्या करेंगे? वी डोंट वांट दैट. सो वी वांट ओनली द रीसेंट ट्रेंड्स. सो हम उसमें एक टर्म और जोड़ देते हैं जो डिफाइन करता है कि आपको कितने से कितने पीरियड के बीच में डेटा चाहिए. So this is how we develop a search strategy, which is a stepwise process in which everything is defined. So what you have done till selection criteria, inclusion and exclusion criteria, you have to include everything into search strategy to reach to the publications which are of your relevance, right? So now we reach to a stage of selecting the studies using a selection criteria. अभी हम selection criteria पे आ गए. ठीक है, अभी हमारे पास studies आ गई. We ran the search strategy in different databases. Through different databases, we came to around 3,000 citations. We got 3,000 citations. And in these citations, we have come across only the titles and abstract. Different databases are there, but they provide only you the information about the title and the abstract of the publication. This is the common thing that is available, right? Full publications are less. So selection the studies using the selection criteria happens in two phases. Phase 1 and phase 2. In phase 1, the selection is being done based on titles and abstract only. During the phase 2, because you have already screened the titles and the abstract, the basic information you had, and from 3,000 you have reached to a number of 300. Now you try to find out the full text of these publications from different sources. You can buy them, you can your library might have subscribed them, or some other sources. You try to find out the full text. So that is the second phase. So we'll discuss phase by phase. So first phase is you are screening the titles and abstract. From this phase onwards, from selection of studies using selection criteria till your data, the process is being generally recommended to conduct by 2 independent reviewers. And if there is any conflict between the reviewer, then a third person who is a quality analyst or quality assurance person would decide that who is right. So what I mean by this step, I'll tell you. हमने सर्च स्ट्रैटेजी रन कर ली सारे डेटाबेसेस में. We did that. And now what is happening? हमारे पास 3000 citations आ गई. हमने उसको एक डेटाबेस में, एक एक्सेल में डाल लिया. ठीक. What we can do is, एक रिव्यूअर ने उसे पूरा 3000 को देखा, पढ़ा, टाइटल्स एंड एब्स्ट्रैक्ट के बेसिस पे अपना इंक्लूजन एक्सक्लूजन क्राइटेरिया देखा. उसके बेसिस पे उसने कुछ स्टडीज इंक्लूड करी, कुछ स्टडीज एक्सक्लूड करी. राइट. The same thing would be done by the second reviewer. Both are independent to each other. A doesn't know B, what B is doing, and B is not knowing what A is doing. 2 independent reviewers have given their results that these studies should be included and these should be excluded. But what happens that out of 3000, there were conflict between reviewer A and reviewer B among 30 citations. 30 studies mein reviewer A was not agreeing to reviewer B. What reviewer A was including, the reviewer B was excluding. What reviewer B was including, reviewer A was excluding. So there was a conflict. So here comes the role of a third person, the quality person, quality assurance person, who actually checks these conflicts and makes the final decision. Okay, this should be included and this should be excluded only on those 30 citations. Rest are fine. So this is how phase 1 happens, phase 1 of screening, where from 3000 number we have reached to almost 200 or 300. So now the phase 2 begins, where again 2 reviewers, after getting the full text from different sources, 2 independent reviewers, again reviewer A or reviewer B, would screen those full text citations, would read through that full text papers, that 10 pages paper, and would give their result again. We want to include that, we want to exclude that. So again, and then if there is any conflict in 1 or 2 or 3, then a quality assurance person comes and then finally decides. And then from those 300 studies, probably 30 or 40 would be finally included in your systematic literature review, which goes to the next step. I hope I am pretty clear in explaining till now, but we'll discuss it further in one more round of discussion. So then, after selection of these studies, it comes to synthesize results of individual studies to answer the research question. Now it is the time to extract. अभी हमारे पास studies आ गई, पर अभी हमारे पास result नहीं आया, हमारे पास data नहीं है, हमारे पास सिर्फ studies हैं. उन studies के अंदर जो data है, जो निचोड़ है, वो तो अभी हमने निकालना है. So the next step would be to extract the data from these included studies. Extract the data according to our requirement. If I am interested in only the glucose level, then I'll extract only the glucose level from that study, not the additional outcomes which that study has reported. मान लो स्टडी में 100 आउटकम्स अलग अलग से दिया हुआ है, किसी में एडवर्स इवेंट्स रिपोर्टेड है, किसी में किसी ड्रग की वजह से डेथ रिपोर्टेड है, किसी में उस ड्रग से मान लो कुछ और रिपोर्टेड है. वो सब नहीं करेंगे, हमें सिर्फ उतना ही डेटा चाहिए जो हमारा रिसर्च क्वेश्चन के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है, जो हमने अपने प्रोटोकॉल में डिफाइन कर दिया कि हम तो यही करेंगे. Then we need to extract that data. Now we have extracted that data. Again, this happens by two independent reviewers. मान लो एक रिव्यूअर ने कुछ छोड़ दिया तो दूसरे ने रिव्यूअर ने कैच कर लिया. So this is the purpose of two different independent reviewers. If I mistakenly missed something, then the second reviewer might catch up that data, and finally that is included in our study. So again, the quality assurance person come if there is any conflict between reviewer A and reviewer B. By conflict, I doesn't mean that there is a wrist fighting or something like that. Conflict means data shows differently by these two independent reviewers. So then the role comes of a quality assurance person who will finally decide that which data to be included and which needs to be removed off. So now we have collected the data. Now, if we want to conduct or reach to a meta-analysis stage, then we'll do the analysis. We'll employ a tool, a statistical tool, to analyze the data. So this is till this stage we have analyzed the data. We have found what we want to find, and then the last stage would be report our findings. अभी एनालिसिस हमारे पास डेटा आ गया, हमने उसका एनालिसिस कर लिया, हमने उसकी इंटरप्रिटेशन कर ली. Now we want to report the findings. So this is the stage where we'll say that drug, finally we'll say that according to the glucose level reduction, हमने सिर्फ एक ही आउटकम असेस किया तो हम सिर्फ उसी के अकॉर्डिंग लिखेंगे. According to the glucose level reduction among 30 studies that were included in this systematic literature review, we came to a conclusion that drug A was not better than drug B, क्योंकि कोई statistical significant difference नहीं था. We have employed a statistical tool, so we could identify that there was a statistical significantly difference or not. So we are concluding. I'm just giving a hypothetical example. I don't know the actual truth, but we can conclude that drug A was not better than drug B, or drug A results were comparable to drug B, or whatever it is, whatever your statistical analysis has shown, we'll report that. So this is the final stage of systematic review. So now we'll do a much deep dive into each process, and I'll try to show with more examples on that. So research question. So systematic review needs to specify a research question. आप किस लिए research करें, आप किस लिए systematic review करें, that you have to define at the very beginning. Excuse me. And also the methods that will be used to investigate the question. So that will guide your research question. So this is often written as a protocol prior to undertaking a review. So सबसे पहला step, research question. Research question बनते ही हम लोग एक document बनाते हैं, that is called a protocol. Before actually deep diving into conducting a systematic review, we develop a protocol. So what a protocol is, plan of methods at the beginning of a review can be a very useful activity. आपके mind में सब कुछ है. You know each and everything how to do it. Protocol is a written document. आपके mind में पहले सब कुछ था कि हाँ मुझे ये करना है, मुझे ऐसा करना है, मुझे ऐसा करना है. But during because you have not made it into pen and paper, while conducting a systematic review, you forgot something. That's an issue. So protocol is a written document. It is a mandatory document which you need to have in your hand, always ready, while you are conducting a systematic review. It helps the review team. Moreover, आप अकेले तो नहीं कर रहे ना. ठीक है, आपके माइंड में सब कुछ है कि मुझे सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यू में ये सब कुछ करना है, but you are not doing it all alone. You have multiple people who are helping you or who are doing it for you. As I told you, there are two reviewers, one is and another third one is an independent QC person or QA person. So while transferring your information to another person, you might lose something, you might forget something. So it's always a mandatory step to have a protocol, a written document with you in which everything is written, so that if you want to transfer your information to someone, then you don't forget anything. And moreover, as I said in a very initial slide, that systematic literature reviews are always reproducible. So for that reproducibility, you have to produce a document which has a lot more details. So it helps the review team to gain a shared understanding of the scope of the review and the methods that they will use to answer the review's question. So writing a protocol or plan of the methods at the beginning of a review can be very useful activity, and it helps. So different types of systematic review will have more or less developed protocols. किसी के बहुत ज़्यादा detail में protocols होंगे, किसी के थोड़े से कम होंगे. So the review question gives each reviewer its particular structure, drives key decisions about the type of studies to include, where to look for them, how to assess these quality, and how to combine their findings. So I'll show you an example. So this is a systematic review protocol example for a study where the reviewer wants to assess the smoking cessation interventions. जो स्मोकिंग को रोकने के लिए इंटरवेंशंस हैं, स्मोकिंग सेसेशन इंटरवेंशंस एंड स्ट्रैटेजीज फॉर hospitalized patients. So this is just an example. So I don't want you to go into deep into the topic. So we'll just see the structure of the protocol. So what it has. So it has a little of background, not much detail. Then we have the research questions clearly defined. Then we have the inclusion criteria on type of participants, type of intervention, type of outcome, type of studies. Then we have the search strategy and the initial search term that would be used: smoking cessation, reduction, withdrawal, articles published in last 10 years. Another thing is they have put a language barrier also, where we want only the studies published in English language only, because in this world a lot of other languages are also available. And for example, Chinese people publish in Chinese language. China people publish their results in Chinese language, Japanese, Russian. So they have German. So we have many different languages, and the regional people or the country specific people report their country specific result in their local languages. But as an Indian, I might know one or two language, but most of the people would be comfortable only in English results, the studies published in English. So we'll include that barrier into our search strategy, that we want to include only English studies. So these are the databases that I want to study during my SLR development: Sinhal, Medline, Current Contents, Cochrane, PsycInfo, Embase, CancerLit. So there are multiple of them. So this is how I define that I'll be doing my search strategy. Then critical appraisal. Critical appraisal is a thing we'll discuss in more detail in the next slide. But it is one thing which is a tool which helps you assess the quality of the study you are included into your systematic review. अभी हमने देखा we included 30 studies, but only 20 were the best in reporting their results, and the 10 were not very good while reporting their results. So while concluding my systematic review, I'll state that during the critical appraisal, it was observed that some studies had some limitations. So critical appraisal also has multiple tools. I'll show you all those tools in next slide. Then data collection, how I will do the data collection. Is there any database, or we are using the Excel or whatever it is, and what kind of data I'll be collecting. I'll be collecting the qualitative data, or I'll be collecting the quantitative data. So these are all defined in my protocol. For example, in this they have highlighted Sumari software suite. They will be using this software to collect their data, to store their data, and finally analyze the data. And then we have data synthesis, that how we are going to analyze and present our data. We want to present our data with odds ratio and 95% confidence. We are presenting our data in standardized mean differences. So whatever it is, so it is already defined in my protocol that मैं ऐसा ही करूँ, मैं ऐसा ही करूँगा या मैं ऐसा ही करूँगी. And what the statistical chi-square test अगर मुझे लगाना है, so how I will synthesize my data is defined in my protocol. So this is an example of a protocol. I can show you one more. So this is again a background is there. Okay, I'll show you. Starts from here. So this is the topic: the effectiveness of health professionals, education and training institutions designing and implementing continuous development programs for faculty and teaching staff relevant to evolving healthcare needs of their community. Oh, it's really a big topic. So I just want to show you the structure. So first is the background again, and then we have the objective, then review question, and then the inclusion and inclusion criteria. What kind of population I want to include, what is the intervention, what would be the comparison, what would be the outcome, and then evidence, how I'll be gathering my evidence, what databases I will be searching, what hand searching would be done. What hand searching is actually, hand searching is you have selected few papers during your analysis, during your study selection process. You found some reviews which were done on a similar topic related to you, simple literature review. What you will do the bibliographic searching. आप उसके references check करोगे कि आपके पास वो सारी references आई हैं कि नहीं. So this is hand searching. What you do is कि कुछ journals जो होते हैं वो हमेशा print mode में नहीं होते. So what you want, you think कि इस journal में ये इस तरह के papers अच्छे publish हो सकते हैं, but you don't have the online version of that available. So you go to the library to find that journal. You want to search that journal. So that is hand searching actually. So whatever you do through database searching is known as searching the databases, and whatever you do besides online searching is hand searching. So you do it manually, you do it through secondary sources. So all that is hand searching. And then reference searches, bibliographic searches, that what I told you. Then eligibility criteria, then type of intervention, outcomes, exclusion criteria, assessment of risk bias. Risk bias is what I told you is critical appraisal of a particular study. Then data synthesis, and then how we are disseminating our results, and resource implications. Right? Resource implication is basically who sponsored that particular project. So this is a protocol. Now selection criteria. So now reviewers have to make a decision about which research studies to include in their review. So in order to do this systematically and transparently, they develop rules about which studies can be selected in the review or they can be excluded from the review. That we discussed, inclusion and exclusion criteria. So selection criteria, sometimes referred to as inclusion or exclusion criteria, create restrictions on the review. अभी बहुत broad topic हो गया हमारा. हम इतने broad topic से हम 30,000 studies नहीं assess कर सकते. We need to cut it down to have more relevant, more recent data. You have to funnel down. So that is why we apply a selection criteria as a restriction. So all reviews, whether systematic or not, limit in some way the studies that are considered by the review. There should be some limit where you can decide the number. In simple literature review, what we do is Google it and scroll it up to 3 or maximum 4 pages of Google, and then that's it. We are done with it. We limited our searches to that only. But in systematic literature review, you can't limit it कि नहीं 30,000 आया, हम तो उसमें से 3,000 ही cherry pick करके हम assess करेंगे. No, that is not a way. In systematic literature review, you have to define that how you are going to select the studies, how you are excluding the studies. Out of 30,000, why you are selecting only 3,000 and taking to the first step, and then 300 to the next step. So you have to define it very clearly, very explicitly during the protocol development. So inclusion and exclusion criteria is meant for that. And systematic review simply make these restrictions transparent and therefore consistent across studies. These selection criteria are shaped by the review question and conceptual framework. And then now comes developing a search strategy. So the search strategy is the plan for how relevant research studies will be identified. अब ऐसा तो नहीं है कि हम कुछ भी डाल देंगे और कुछ भी निकल आएगा. मान लो हमने डायबिटीज पे स्टडी करना है and we are just typing diabetes on Google, then or PubMed, can you imagine how many results can come up? There are millions. So you can't screen all those. You have to restrict yourself. You have to select couple of those words, or you have to combine those words to reach to a suitable number, at least which are most relevant to you and which are on your reach. ऐसा नहीं हो कि 30,000, 1 lakh, 2 lakh publications आ गए और you are going to screen all through them. That is not possible. And moreover, beyond a certain limit, rest all are waste of time actually, because those studies are not relevant. For example, I'll tell you about the studies which are not relevant. Even if you type combination of terms, some studies really become non-relevant because in case of diabetes, for example, I'll tell you a study was conducted to see whether drug A is able to reduce the hypertension in diabetic patient. अब ड्रग ए का अभी तक हमने इफेक्ट देखा था कि वो सिर्फ ग्लूकोज कंट्रोल कर रहा है. अब वो कंपनी क्लेम कर रही है कि नहीं, ये ड्रग डायबिटिक पेशेंट में ग्लूकोज तो कंट्रोल कर रहा है और वो बीपी भी कम कर रहा है. डुअल इफेक्ट हो गया. बहुत सारी ऐसी ड्रग्स होती है ना, जैसे कॉमनली अगर मैं आपको बताऊं तो कॉम्बीफ्लेम आप तब लेते हो, मोस्ट कॉमनली यूज्ड ड्रग है कॉम्बीफ्लेम. यू टेक इट व्हेन यू फील फीवरिश, व्हेन यू हैव एनी pain in your body, you have a headache or you have a mild muscle ache, you take combiflame, so you feel better. Another effect, I don't know how many of you are aware of that or not, that combiflame is actually an anti-inflammatory. अगर आपको चोट लगती है, आपको दर्द नहीं भी हो रहा, आपकी जो इन्फ्लेमेशन है, जो माइल्ड सी सूजन आती है कहीं पर, उसको ठीक करने के लिए होता है. So it is actually an anti-inflammatory. तो अभी इसी तरह से इफ यू टेक दैट एग्जांपल कि ड्रग ए जो है वो ग्लूकोज लेवल तो कम कर रहा है बट साथ में ब्लड प्रेशर पे भी इफेक्ट कर रहा है. बट हमने जो स्टडी लेनी थी, हम तो सिर्फ ग्लूकोज लेवल देख रहे हैं, और वो स्टडी जो कर रहा है उसमें बाकी सब क्राइटेरिया मीट हो रहे हैं, पर वो असेस क्या कर रहा है, उसके आउटकम्स क्या है, बीपी मेजर. तो हमारे लिए वो स्टडी नॉन रिलेवेंट हो गई. लिटरेचर रिव्यू में जब हम गूगल पे सिर्फ डायबिटीज डालते हैं तो कुछ स्टडीज के बाद नॉन रेलेवेंट स्टडीज आनी शुरू हो जाती हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल, किसी कैंसरस ड्रग्स की वजह से किसी पेशेंट को डायबिटीज हो गया. कोविड के दौरान HCQ लेने पे या कोविड की वजह से कई लोगों को डायबिटीज हो गया. ऐसे रिजल्ट्स भी हैं. क्योंकि उस स्टडी का इंडेक्सिंग जो है वो डायबिटीज वर्ड है, तो वो सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यूज के टाइम पे या जब हमने लिटरेचर रिव्यू के टाइम पे डायबिटीज वर्ड टाइप किया तो वो स्टडी पिक हो गई. बट सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यूज में क्योंकि हमने उसके साथ और रिस्ट्रिक्शंस लगाई हैं सर्च स्ट्रिंग के थ्रू, तो वो जो irrelevant studies हैं वो कम हो जाती हैं. Whereas if we type a general term on Google, there are lot many irrelevant results that you don't want, but that appears into your search results. So the search strategy is a plan of how relevant search studies will be identified. And that is again based upon the review question and the conceptual framework. The selection criteria specify the studies to be included in a review and thus a key driver of the search strategy. What your selection criteria has told will guide the development of the search strategy. And a key consideration will be whether the search aims to be exhaustive, that is aim to try and find all the primary research and address the review question. That is our main aim. The search strategy will detail the sources to be searched. आपने कौन कौन से डेटाबेसेस सर्च करने हैं, कैसे कैसे करना है, हैंड पिक करना है, बिब्लियोग्राफी करनी है, या सिंपल डेटाबेसेस सर्चेस में वही खत्म करना है. कॉन्फ्रेंस सर्चिंग एक अलग एस्पेक्ट होता है जिसमें व्हाट वी डू इज कॉन्फ्रेंस पब्लिकेशंस, कॉन्फ्रेंस searching is different. So what we do is we try to find out abstract books for that particular conference which is related to diabetes, and then find out if there are any particular publication which is related to arts, SLR. So that is something different. So we define that what kind of sources we would be including our SLR. So this is a part of a search strategy, and the way in which sources will be searched, how they will be searched. They will be hand searched, they will be searched online, they would be done through a library, or they would be done through a direct interview. An exhaustive search strategy would usually include all sources using multiple bibliographic databases, and bibliographic databases usually index academic journals and thus are an important source. So bibliographic databases usually index records according to the topic using keywords or control terms. For example, what you can see here is Alzheimer's disease. Sorry. Alzheimer's disease was our target. Alzheimer's is a synonym or a word which is commonly used. Alzheimer without an S is another term which is used for this disease. And then Alzheimer's disease short form is AD. Some papers use AD as their keyword or a indexing term. Some use Alzheimer's without a post office S. So some has IE, EI. There is a difference in EI. So there are terms with EI and IE. So that is a difference in US and UK English. So you have to include all those terms with both IE and EI. And then Alzheimer is also identified as cognition disorder or cognitive disorder or something like that, or dementia as well. So these are the search terms only for a disease. See how many terms we have combined just to search one disease. So this is an example I have given it to you. Right? Okay. So till now we have found that there are different databases which have different type of keywords, style of indexing, style of referencing, style of searching. So we need to create different search strategy for different kind of databases. Now with time, or I should say with technology development, we have come up with a new thing which is federated search engines. What federated search engines do, they combine different databases into one and then help you in getting the running the search strategy in just one database, so that you can get the information for all the databases in just one go with one search strategy. So this is called as federated search engines. That is a different concept coming up newly. So, but that will really help in conducting the systematic reviews, because that will be less time consuming and there won't be any duplicates. If I am searching running a particular search strategy in 10 different databases, then there might be chances that one publication is indexed in more than one database. So there are chances of duplication. So while conducting this selection criteria, I might find some of the studies which are duplicate to each other. So by federated search engines, that possibility of duplication would be removed, and the effort and the time that would be consumed while running the search strategy would be reduced. So a search strategy will identify the search terms that will be used to search the bibliographic databases, and a comprehensive search strategy usually involves searching both a free text search using keywords determined by reviewers and control terms. So उसमें क्या होता है कि डेटाबेसेस आपको अलाउ करते हैं कि आप जो इंडेक्स्ड टर्म्स हैं, मान लो जो आपके कीवर्ड्स हैं जो आपने पब्लिकेशन लिखते हुए डिफाइन करे हैं, उसके अलावा जो पब्लिकेशन की बॉडी है अगर उसमें भी वो टर्म्स अवेलेबल हैं तो वो भी पब्लिकेशन जो है वो आपके एसएलआर में पिक हो जाती है सर्च स्ट्रैटेजीज। इसमें जो आप ये टर्म्स देख रहे हैं OR और so which are in capitals, so these terms, these are Boolean operators. What Boolean operators are? These, we have three Boolean operators: or, not, not, and and, or, not, and. So these are used to combine different terms to generate a search strategy or a search string. So I'll not go into that detail. Probably this is not the right platform to discuss in detail about the Boolean operators, but I just wanted to touch base that. So now we have seen that there are some search sources like World Wide Net, Internet, Google, Google Scholar, bibliographic databases, subject specific databases we have for education. We have ERIC, which is Education Resources Information Center. For generic, we have Applied Social Sciences Index and abstracts, hand searching of specialist journals or books, contacts with experts, citation checking. These are examples how you can conduct your searches, where you can conduct your searches. So next we have study selection process. Studies identified by the search are subject to a process of checking to ensure they meet the selection criteria. Abhi tak we found some studies. Now we want to proceed further where we want to check what we have defined in our protocol as our inclusion and exclusion criteria. Does these studies meet our inclusion criteria? If not, then these should be excluded. So this is usually done in two stages, whereby titles and abstracts are checked first to determine whether the study is likely to be relevant. Through title and abstract, most of the things are generally clear, and we include them according to the information. But in some cases, if the information is not that clear, then also you include that study so that during the full text, you can actually check whether this was this study needs to be included or excluded. But on doubtful basis, during the first stage of screening, you usually include those studies, giving the benefit of doubt, because abstract also has word limit. So every information might not have been published in the abstract. So might be possible that the full text have the information you are looking for. And then a full copy of the paper is required to complete the screening exercise. Right? And the process of finding studies is not efficient, just finding the study. Searching bibliographic databases leads to many irrelevant studies also being found when they have to be checked manually one by one, find the few relevant studies. There is increasing use of nowadays there has been an increasing use of specialized softwares to support and in some cases automate the selection process, where AI plays a role. Artificial intelligence plays a role where you can feed the software that yes, these kind of studies you want to include, and then that software can help you to screen the studies. Now comes that after the second screening, after the full text screening of the studies, Now you want to code the studies. You have to somehow name those studies. ना अभी studies हमारे पास 30 studies आ गए. Now you want to code them somehow that it is easily accessible, or you can call them. अगर किसी study के बारे में अगर आपको systematic literature review में लिखना है कि this study reported this, so you have to name this study. Na, you have to give a code to that study. Moreover, when you apply a statistical tool to it, you have to code that study so that you can input that data accordingly into the software. So once relevant studies have been selected, reviewers need to systematically identify and record the information from the study that will be used to answer the question. अभी हमने data तो निकालना है ना, we want to extract the data, so we want to code them, we want to name them accordingly. This information includes the characteristics of the study. What we want to extract is characteristics of the study, details of participants, context, everything. So coding, what coding does? Coding describes the details of the study to enable mapping to what research has been undertaken. How the research has been undertaken to allow assessment of quality and relevance of the study question. The results of each study so that these can be synthesized to answer the research question. So EPI centers bespoke systematic review software, or EPI reviewer is a software which is used for such purposes. And decision about information to record will be made by the review team based on the review question and the conceptual framework. Again, a protocol comes into play. So now comes the quality appraisal or critical appraisal, or appraising the quality of the studies that you have included so far. So there are broadly 3 elements that are considered in a critical appraisal. The appropriateness of the study design. आपके रिव्यू क्वेश्चन के अकॉर्डिंग उस स्टडी डिजाइन जो था वो एप्रोप्रिएट था कि नहीं. The quality of execution of the study methods. How well the study was conducted. That individual study, not your systematic review. How well that study was executed. What was the methodology? If it is a randomized control trial, then what was the technique for randomization of the patients? What was the requirement of blinding of the patients and the investigator? You all might have heard कि clinical trials में patient को नहीं मालूम होता कि उसको कौन सी drug मिल रही है. So this is a process of blinding. This is important so that मान लो, I'll tell you through an example why blinding is important. मान लो एक प्लेसिबो कंट्रोल ट्रायल है. एक ट्रायल ऐसा है जिसमें आधे पेशेंट्स को प्लेसिबो मिलना है और आधे को प्लेसिबो मींस नो ड्रग, सिंपल है शुगर पिल, एंड दूसरे पेशेंट्स को ड्रग मिलेगा, प्रॉपर ट्रीटमेंट ड्रग मिलेगा. तो अभी अगर जिन पेशेंट्स को प्लेसिबो मिल रहा है, अगर उनको पता लग जाए कि उनको प्लेसिबो मिल रहा है और उनको पता है कि प्लेसिबो से कोई इफेक्ट नहीं आएगा, तो साइकोलॉजिकली भी अगर उनको कुछ नहीं हो रहा है ना, तो उनको लगेगा हाँ यार कुछ हो रहा है, मेरी तबीयत ठीक नहीं है, क्योंकि मुझे कुछ दवाई तो मिल नहीं रही है, तो मेरी तबीयत ठीक नहीं है, राइट. Whereas इंटरवेंशन वाले को लगे नहीं यार मुझे कोई साइड इफेक्ट आ रहा है. अगर उसे पता लग गया कि उसे कोई नई ड्रग दी जाती, नहीं मुझे कोई साइड इफेक्ट आ रहा है, मुझे लग रहा है कि मेरा सिर दर्द हो रहा है, मुझे लग रहा है कि मेरी उंगली में दर्द हो रहा है, मुझे लग रहा है कि मेरे हाँ आज 2 बाल ज्यादा टूट गए. So this is why the good studies which are conducted by good agencies, they make the patients blind to the knowledge of the intervention what they are receiving. They don't make blind through eyes, but actually they make blind to the intervention कि आपको क्या intervention मिल रही है आपको नहीं पता. So this is an important aspect. So this is a criteria for good study. And then studies relevance to the review question. हमारे question के according वो study कितनी relevant. So many published scales are available for assessing study quality, and quality scales for appraising qualitative research tend to focus on extent to which the study is authentic in reflecting the meaning of the data. कितनी authenticity से उसने अपना data represent किया, कुछ छुपाने की कोशिश तो नहीं करी, कुछ hide करने की कोशिश तो नहीं करी, कुछ नेगेटिव को पॉजिटिव बनाने की कोशिश तो नहीं करी, कुछ बायस तो नहीं किया, कुछ लिमिट तो नहीं किया कि कुछ पेशेंट्स में एडवर्स इफेक्ट आ रहे थे तो उन पेशेंट्स का डेटा दिखाया ही नहीं, ऐसा तो नहीं है. सो आई विल शो यू सम टूल्स. See, for randomized control trials, the tools are ROB2, risk of bias tool, CAS, is another tool. For non-randomized trial, there is Robbins tool, which is available to critically appraise these studies. Robbins E, Robbins I, Newcastle Ottawa scale is available, IHE, JBI. So there are multiple of them depending on different type of study designs to assess. For example, if it is an animal research, there is a different tool which is available to assess. Diagnostic accuracy, there is a different tool. So there are different tools which are available to assess the quality of the study. So now we are synthesizing the data. A synthesis is more than a list of findings from including study. Now what we have found through the studies, now we are trying to list them up. It is an attempt to integrate the information from the individual studies to produce a better answer to review question that is provided by the individual studies. 100 individual study या 30 individual study से जो data निकल के आया, हम उसका crux बनाना चाहते हैं, तो उसलिए हम data synthesize करते हैं. Each stage of the review contributes towards the synthesis, and so decision made in earlier stages of the review shape the possibilities of the synthesis. What we have decided during the protocol stage, what we have decided during the inclusion and exclusion selection stage, what we have actually run during the search strategy stage, that all guide you to the synthesis, data synthesis, what we have synthesized. So all type of synthesis involves some kind of data transformation. अभी data हर पेपर में मान लो 30 publications हमने देखी, उन 30 में एक जैसे तो नहीं reported होगा. मान लो किसी में reported होगा glucose count in fasting glucose होगा, किसी में postprandial होगा, किसी में दोनों होंगे, किसी में उनकी units different हो जाएंगी. So synthesis के टाइम पे हम क्या करते हैं, उस डेटा को एक जैसा करते हैं conversions करके. So all types of synthesis involve some kind of data transformation that is achieved through common analytical steps and searching for patterns in data. जब हमने एक तरह का डेटा बना लिया, तब हम पैटर्न असेस करने की कोशिश करते हैं कि ड्रग ए से फास्टिंग शुगर बेटर हो रही थी, ड्रग बी से पोस्टप्रांडियल शुगर बेटर हो रही है, ठीक है, ग्लूकोज लेवल बेटर हो रहे हैं. इस तरह से हम पैटर्न डेवलप करने की कोशिश करते हैं. Checking the quality of the synthesis and integrating data to answer the review question. If we are applying a special analytical tool to the data, what we have already achieved is called meta-analysis of an SLR. हमने systematic review के साथ हमने meta-analysis जोड़ दिया, क्योंकि हमने एक special analytical tool अपने data को analyze करने के लिए लगा दिया उस पे. So many systematic reviews involve a statistical pooling of the findings of primary studies. So every meta-analysis is associated with a systematic review, whereas every systematic review is not mandatorily associated with a meta-analysis. ये हमारे ऊपर है कि हम meta-analysis करेंगे systematic review के बाद, या हम उसी stage पे उसे छोड़ के उसी के conclusions पे काम करेंगे. So every meta-analysis is preceded by a systematic review, but every systematic review is not mandatorily proceeded with a meta-analysis. So systematic reviews often use statistical technique to often, not always, to combine data from examined individual research studies and use the pool data to come to new statistical conclusions. This is called meta-analysis, and it represents a specialized subset of systematic reviews. Not all systematic reviews include meta-analysis, but all meta-analysis are found in systematic reviews. Simply put, a systematic review refers to entire process of selecting, evaluating, and synthesizing all available evidence, while the term meta-analysis refers to the statistical approach only, which was employed at the last stage to combine the data derived from the systematic review. मेटा एनालिसिस ऐसे ही नहीं हो सकता ना, कैसे होगा जब तक आपके पास डेटा नहीं होगा, और डेटा कैसे मेटा एनालिसिस का सिंथेसाइज होगा, सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यू के थ्रू. Conclusions produced by meta-analysis are statistically stronger because we have applied an additional tool of analysis. So they are more statistically stronger than the analysis of any single study due to increased number of subjects, greater diversity among the subjects, accumulated effects, and results. Meta-analysis have become common in social and biomedical sciences these days. So this is an example of how the data has been presented after conducting the meta-analysis. So there are a number of different metrics of effect size, selection of which is principally determined by the structure of outcome data in the primary study. हम meta-analysis के बाद किस तरह का data produce करेंगे, that all depends on the raw data we obtained from the primary studies. ठीक है, उसमें continuous data है, continuous data means 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, no, yes, and और dichotomous data है कि मतलब yes और no या 1 या 0 इस तरह का डेटा है, या continuous data है. उस बेसिस पे डिपेंड करेगा कि हमारा मेटा एनालिसिस हम किस तरह का टूल एम्प्लॉय कर पाएंगे. अभी हम ग्लूकोज वाले एग्जांपल पे चल रहे थे तो मैं वही एक्सप्लेन करती हूँ. कॉन्टिन्यूस डेटा मतलब हम ग्लूकोज लेवल असेस कर रहे हैं कि फास्टिंग में 90.1 था पेशेंट का या 103 था. दिस इज अ कॉन्टिन्यूस डेटा कि बीच में कोई भी वैल्यू हो सकती है. या डाइकोटोमस डेटा था कि फास्टिंग का डेटा ज्यादा था, फास्टिंग में कम था और पोस्ट प्रैंडियल ग्लूकोज लेवल ज्यादा था. ये तो अब दो ही चीजें हैं ना, दो ही ऑप्शंस हमने दिए हैं, या ज्यादा होगा या कम होगा. तो ये डाइकोटोमस हो गया. कॉन्टिन्यूस हो गया कि हम वैल्यूज पे जा रहे हैं, एग्जैक्ट वैल्यूज पे जा रहे हैं. So outcome data with a dichotomous structure, yes or no structure, can be transformed to odds ratio, absolute risk ratio, relative risk ratio, standardized mean difference. So this is an example. So where treatment ने 15 पेशेंट्स में आउट ऑफ 130 में इफेक्ट दिखाया, whereas कंट्रोल में 22 पेशेंट में इफेक्ट दिखाया एक पर्टिकुलर स्टडी में. तो उसके बाद ऑड्स रेशियो कुछ आया. ऑड्स रेशियो का मतलब है रिस्क रेशियो, सॉरी रिस्क रेशियो का मतलब है कि ट्रीटमेंट से रिस्क जो है वो ज्यादा है, मतलब कंट्रोल जो है वो बेटर है. So this is just an interpretation. I'm just giving you an example. It goes, if you go into deep dive of this type of data, then it will take like workshops, multiple workshops. So I'm just giving you an example. And then applications of systematic reviews. So politicians and policy makers are increasingly interested in evidence-based decisions rather than an individualistic decision. So they want to analyze each and everything which has already been done in that area so that they can reach to a better conclusion. They are under pressure to look to research for solutions to policy problems and to justify programs by reference to the knowledge base. अब वो बोल सकते हैं कि यार मेरा तो नहीं है, देखो इतना सारा हो चुका है, मैंने तो इस बेस पे ये पॉलिसी बनाई है, ठीक है, एविडेंस बेस है. For policy makers, systematic reviews may provide a robust, reliable summaries of the most reliable and latest evidence, a valuable backdrop of evidence on which decisions about policies can be drawn. A few examples: review of research on effects of psychological stress upon performance, systematic review of literature dealing with effects of stress on performance, behavior therapy research with children, a critical review where the reviewer assessed, evaluated behavior therapy research with children published from 65 to 69 to an experimental design. Educational production functions for teacher technology mixes, problems and possibilities, where a systematic review of past and current experiments with educational applications of computers and televisions is coupled, right? So now we can open the platform for any. I'm on time, I hope. And I hope I made the things clear to all of you. And now I am opening the platform for any questions. Look, opening the chat box also if any of you have any queries. So I am So I'm going from bottom to top on the questions which are already there in the chat box. One question by Akshat Rai was ethics clearance needed for SLR. For SLR, because you are collecting the data which has already been passed through institutional review boards or the ethics clearance, you don't need to go through the process again because you are not directly involved in studying the subjects. You are indirectly involved in studying those subjects, so you don't need that. I don't know which file was not visible. I'm so sorry if it was not. Probably you guys can contact me over the email and I can share those resources with you. How is quality assurance person chosen? So that is depending on experience and the trainings the person has already undertaken. So a fresher can do the first screening and the second screening, but a person who has some experience in doing systematic reviews or who has already conducted some of them can be an quality assurance person because he can judge very well that the particular study could to be included, not included, data to be included, not included. So it is based on that. How we can use Prisma for an SLR? Prisma is a guideline which tell you that which steps need to be checked while doing the SLR. If you open that 20-point checklist of Prisma, you will find that there are different steps which have been marked that whether you have conducted that step or not. Once you go through that Prisma in detail, you will it is self-explanatory that you are doing your SLR in which direction. Are the level of evidence same for SR of RCT and SR? No, level of evidence is not same because RCT is at a higher level of evidence pyramid compared to observational studies. So, so same as the SLR for these two different studies. So RCTs are considered to be better than just observational studies because I'll tell you an example. The reason why RCTs are the studies which are conducted under controlled environment where you have selected the patients according to your requirement. Whereas in observational studies, the patient has already taken the therapy and you are just observing that patient. The patient might not be according to your requirements 100%. So there are chances of bias in observational studies as well. For example, I told you about the blinding. In observational study, the patient has already taken the therapy, so there is no scope of blinding. You can't, moreover, you can't do placebo-controlled trials. So there is a difference between RCTs, and RCTs are always considered better than that. What is Prisma guideline? I have explained that already. Difference between systematic review and meta-analysis I have explained. Is there any limit of number of own research publication or any time of research experience to produce a systematic literature review? No, you can do it, but you have to, if you are new to the system, then you have to study a lot about systematic literature review. Just 2 hours was not enough to give you in detail about the systematic literature review. I had thought to have a short exercise with all you guys, but due to time, paucity of time, I couldn't do that. So that takes a little more effort if you are very new to the systematic literature reviews. Otherwise, there is no criteria of your own research publications for writing a systematic literature review. I understand there is a thin borderline between a traditional literature review and systematic literature. Appreciate if you can discuss about the process. I think I have discussed it in detail. And I would not say that there is a thin borderline. There is a thick line between the two. Is there any well-defined process? I have defined you the process. Okay, so we'll check again if there are any other. As we know that for any drug to come to market, it takes about 20-25 years, but in COVID situation, it was discovered in less than a year. Do you think there has been done an extensive SLR during clinical trials? If so, which don't should be adopted in, if so, why don't should it should be adopted in other disease areas? Okay, I am not very clear what you're trying to ask, but I got a gist of this. So I'll try to explain that why the 20 to 25 year time in COVID reduced to 1 year. So one thing was that the COVID vaccination was developed on the same basis, same protocol as other vaccinations available in the market. There are lot many what should I say, lot many vaccines are already available in the market taking the same concept for COVID-19. Do you know, I don't know, you guys are aware, attenuated virus, so in which the virus effect is reduced to such a situation that it doesn't cause a disease to you, but it can impact your immunity towards that viral infection. So this was the concept which has been used in many vaccinations since years. So that was the ground of creating vaccinations in a very short period of time during COVID. Your second question was about the extensive SLR during for these trials. Yes, you can do it. I don't know if already systematic reviews have been done in this area, but yes, of course, this is an important topic. For conducting an SLR in this area, that what clinical trials have already been done in COVID and what are their results. You can do that. I didn't get your question. If so, why don't it should be adopted in other disease areas? I am not sure with which question you are linking this, so I am sorry I can't answer this. Kindly clarify whether a review paper is considered as a research publication. General review paper is not considered as a research publication, but a systematic literature review is considered as a research publication. Kindly share the format of systematic review. I am not sure what kind of format you are asking for a systematic review, so I'm sorry I can't answer that. In evidence pyramid, we need to perform the SLR only on RCT. If so, I'll answer that question. If RCTs are available in abundance for your research topic, then try to restrict yourself towards RCTs. But if the evidence is low, I mean, the number of studies which have been conducted, I told through an example that if I want to conduct an SLR for COVID, for HCQ in April 2020, because the number of evidence was less, so I could have probably included every type of study. But if I want to do it today, it's almost 2 years now. So now, because the evidence is very extensive, I can restrict myself now to RCTs only. Right? Can you suggest some good apps or softwares for literature review? I'm not sure what you are asking. You want to search for literature review? You want to analyze the data from the literature review? What kind of software you are asking? Moreover, all these apps and softwares change depending on your area of research. You want to do in health sciences, then the databases or apps would be different. If you are doing in educational research, then the databases or apps would be different, or softwares would be different. If you want to do meta-analysis, then also the type of data would guide you which kind of software or app you want to do. So these all differ and depend on your topic of research. For conducting an SLR, do we need any permission? No, you don't need any kind of permission to do an SLR. Review paper is considered as a research paper. I have already answered. SLR is easy or meta-analysis. If you have a statistical background, then meta-analysis is super easy. If you don't have, then meta-analysis might have some challenges for you, because you have to interpret, you have to first select the software or the tool you want to employ, and then through that software, whatever data you are getting, you have to interpret that. Then that also requires some statistical background for you. stepwise format of SLR I have already shown. So these were the questions received so far. So Dharmenji, if there is any other question, if any of the participants want to ask, then please.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful session. Now I request to participants, if you have any queries further, you can contact to Dr. Anamika for your further queries. So thank you so much, ma'am, for your so valuable session, and you have covered all things in a very simple way. So I think there are no more questions from the participants. And with this, we have to wind up today's session. So thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us and for sharing your knowledge and research experience.
Thank you so much. And it was my pleasure and my honor that I shared my knowledge with a vast number of people. I think more than 150 people was here to hear me, and that was really great. And I hope I answered your queries. And if still you have any queries, you can contact me directly through emails, and I'll be more than happy to answer your queries.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And yeah, we'll see you soon in another program.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, and thanks to all the participants for your patiently listening. So we'll meet tomorrow. Thank you so much. Thanks to all the participants. Thank you once again, ma'am.